You said the album was coming out on Saturday. It didn't come out. What happened?
I didn't finish it.
I really don't feel like Jesus is King is the gospel album that Kanye has been building it up to be, even with all the references to Jesus, even with him completely avoiding swearing. It's really more of a record about Kanye's personal faith as a Christian than it is about God, Jesus, or anything related to those things, big picture.
It's official. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's love story is coming to an end. After 6 years of marriage, the e-reality TV star and rapper are separating.
Hello, it's ShadeX, and today I'll be talking about Kanye West and the development of the album Donda. All the promotion prior to the release was very interesting. So interesting that I figured I'd do a video on the history of it. After Jesus is King, Kanye had another album planned. There was going to be a Dr. Dre produced sequel album called Jesus is King 2, but that got scrapped in favor of another album titled God's Country. The single for that album was Wash Us in the Blood, but soon a new album title was given, Donda, the name of Kanye's own mother. Before I go into the history of the production of the album itself, it is very important I talk about the person it's named after. Donda West was Kanye's mother. Her and Kanye were very close. Donda raised him by herself after divorcing Ray West, Kanye's father. She had a job as a teacher at Chicago State University, and was very supportive of Kanye's interest in music. She rented out a studio for him when he was 13, where he recorded a rap called Green Eggs and Ham. Kanye would end up dropping out of college in 1997, which disappointed his mom for a bit. However, after the success of the college dropout in 2004, she was proud of him. Following that, Donda became Kanye's manager. She even wrote a book called Raising Kanye, which was published in 2007. While Donda was alive, Kanye would release 2 albums, Late Registration and Graduation. On Late Registration was the song Hey Mama, which he dedicated to her and would perform at all his shows. After 3 successful albums and a supportive mother, Kanye was at his happiest. He even had plans for a 4th album called Good Ass Job, which would have been a final chapter to Kanye's trilogy of college albums. However, those plans would change after Donda died on November 10th, 2007 after having plastic surgery. I won't go into all the details regarding the death as it's a long story and there is already a great video on the topic by Trap Lore Ross. That video will be linked in the description. The main point I want to get across here is that the death of Donda West was very tragic. After her death, Kanye broke his engagement with his then longtime girlfriend Alexis Pfeiffer. These 2 events in Kanye West's life would lead to him scrapping Good Ass Job and turning his sadness into art with 808s and Heartbreak. Kanye was never the same after Donda's death and blames moving to Los Angeles with her for causing it. It's forever been on his mind ever since. With that important history out of the way, I now will talk about the history of the album itself. Originally, the album was going to come out on July of 2020. Kanye promoted the album on his Twitter with a now deleted tweet of an amazing song snippet that featured his late mother, Donda West, reading a poem about police brutality by KRS-One. Following that is a very emotional song that makes me tear up a bit whenever I listen to it. In the title track for the original version of Donda, Kanye says, "Mommy, I want you to tuck me in." Kanye in the song mentions how he made mistakes and he wants her to comfort him. Also in the track, he asks the question, how many prisons will they make? From this track alone, I could tell this would be a great album. This album was clearly going to be a tribute to his mother and would possibly have some more critiques on mass incarceration based on this one song. During the production of the original version, Kanye made some anecdotally tweets about the Kardashians. One of the tweets I remember was one that called Kim's mom Kris Jong-un. That period of time where Kanye was working on the first version of Donda was pretty troubling. The state of Kanye's mental health was very concerning at the time, especially with those tweets. Kim Kardashian eventually made a statement on Instagram in response to people's concerns by mentioning Kanye's sadness of the loss of his mother and the fact that he has bipolar disorder. I remember some notable things happened during the time Kanye was recording Donda at his Wyoming ranch. One example of this was Dave Chappelle visiting Kanye.
Brotherhood is real. Love is real.
Wait a second, I'm still not smiling, bro.
I was trying to think of the punchline.
We need some joke, something just something to lift our spirits.
Kim was even photographed with Kanye in Wyoming during that time period, and she clearly was sad. Despite that, Kanye was still working on the album in his Wyoming ranch. The track list looked really interesting, with some cut tracks from Yandhi making it on there. These tracks included Hurricane, New Body, and Alien. However, only Hurricane would make it to the final album. Kanye promised to release the album on July 22nd, even tweeting, "In Jesus' name, no cap." But unfortunately, Kanye could not keep that promise. So what happened instead? Kanye put all his focus on his last-minute 2020 presidential campaign. However, he couldn't make it on the ballot in all the states, which led to him doing a write-in campaign. Still, Kanye did release a single that year titled Nah 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 Nah, which did not get a great reaction from fans initially. However, Kanye surprised fans with a remix version with rappers DaBaby and 2 Chainz. That was a lot better. Aside from Watch Us in the Blood and those 2 songs though, Kanye did not release any other music that year. It wasn't until July of 2021, the same month he initially announced the album, that news would come out that Kanye was making music again. This was revealed with a video of Tyler the Creator and Kanye in the studio together. On the whiteboard was a track list, and on that list was Donda. It was clear that Kanye still had the intention to finish that album. Following the Instagram video of him with Tyler, Kanye was sighted publicly wearing a mask at a basketball tournament. News came out that Kanye did a private listening party for his upcoming album Donda in Vegas. A new Kanye song called No Child Left Behind was teased in a Beats commercial. Then on July 22nd, the first public Donda listening party happened in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Before I talk about the 3 parties that happened, I want to acknowledge that I won't be going over how every single track changed, as there are 27 tracks on the final album. Rather, I'll talk about the listening parties, the crazy stuff that happened behind the scenes, and then end the video by briefly sharing my thoughts on the album as a whole. The first Apple Music stream took a very long time to start, but it happened. I heard the music from the first party and it was really good. The album had songs that were, for the most part, never before heard material. Sure, versions of Believe What I Say, 24, and Hurricane did leak in the past, but the rest of the songs were ones I hadn't heard before. I remember liking the music from the first listening party. What was all played sounded great. Following 24 was the title track Donda, which opened with Donda West talking. It also featured a verse by Pusha T. It's a really interesting verse which did not stay on the original album. In it, Pusha mentions Kanye's infamous meltdown at his political rally at South Carolina. The verse stayed in the first and second listening party, but was cut when the third happened. Overall, I really enjoyed the first versions of all the tracks that were played, aside from one, that track being the new version of Hurricane. The new version of Hurricane was definitely inferior to the old one. I just preferred hearing Aunt Clemens sing the hook rather than an auto-tuned Kanye doing it. Also, I was used to hearing Ye's original verse off Yandhi, but I get why he changed it, as at the time, him and Kim weren't on great terms. Don't get me wrong, Listening Party 1's version of Hurricane is fine. I love the addition of Little Baby on the track. During Kanye's Twitter rant prior to their original production of Donda, he mentioned that Little Baby was his favorite rapper, but that he wouldn't do a song with him. I am really glad that that tweet led to this collaboration. While that addition was neat, I still preferred the Yandhi version. Still, I was glad Kanye still had plans to release a version of Hurricane. I am glad it didn't stay a leak, as it was the best track on Yandhi. But man, while good, some of the music from the first listening party felt unfinished. The track that I thought needed the most work was the track Moon by Don Toliver. It was just him singing and that was it. Luckily, Hurricane and Moon would get fixed with Listening Party 2. One notable track from Listening Party 1 was Never Abandon Your Family. The song never made it on the final album, but it was interesting for the time. The song samples Donda West, who mentions to never abandon family. Kanye then sings about how he feels he is losing his family. It was a short yet sad track that gave me 808s and Heartbreak vibe. In that song, he was clearly talking about his divorce with Kim. The listening party ended with the biggest surprise of the night. The last track played was Jail, and it featured a verse from Jay-Z. This was huge news as they had not been talking for quite a few years. Anyway, overall, this was a great first listening party. What I loved about the clips I saw was that Kanye didn't say a single word and was just jamming out to his own album in a full stadium. During the concert, Kanye was wearing a $200 red puff jacket, which was a part of his Gap line. It was really smart of him to wear that as it ended up getting sold out. Anyway, people were hoping Donda would drop on July 22nd as promised, but it didn't. News then came out that Kanye was now living in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that he planned on finishing his album Donda there. On August 5th, a second listening party was scheduled to be streamed on Apple Music. One of the most interesting things about this second listening party is the Countdown to Donda stream that happened before it. The stream had no audio, but it featured Kanye chilling with other rappers prior to the listening party. He was recorded hanging out with hip-hop group The Lox and 5E04, and who would end up being on the final album. Vic Mensa was also in the video as well, along with Justin LA Boy, who was getting a haircut. Chance the Rapper showed up in the stream at one point too. But the highlight of the countdown stream was Kanye working out. He was still wearing his mask and he was doing push-ups and lifting weights. That stuff right there is pure meme material. One of the most iconic things to come out of that countdown stream is the picture of Kanye in the spiked jacket. Anyway, the lead up to the stream was interesting. It was really cool to see what Kanye was up to prior to the listening party, even if people couldn't hear the conversations taking place. Anyway, Listening Party 2 was a big improvement from the first. So many great decisions were made. Kid Cudi got added to the tracks Moon and Remote Control, and these changes improved those two tracks. Kid Cudi's addition to Moon was a surprise. He added a lot to the song, which was missing from the first version of the track. Cudi's addition on Remote Control was great as well, but he got cut in favor of someone else in the third listening party. But we'll talk about that later. But the biggest improvement to a track was The Weeknd on Hurricane. Sure, I miss Aunt Clemens, but Kanye adding him on the hook greatly improved the version that was played before. By the time of Listening Party 2, I got used to Kanye's new verse, which I now like a lot more than the original. I love his humming in the song. Not only that, but the amount of self-reflection in it. A good example of this is shown in the line Architectural Digest, but I needed home improvement, $60 million home. Never went home to it. While it works well as a brag, that isn't the full intention. In that line, he's mentioning how he's been away from Kim Kardashian and his kids' home in Los Angeles. While working on Donda, Kanye had spent time far away from his family in his Wyoming ranch for quite a while. This line is important because Kanye is looking back at why his marriage with Kim failed. By the time the divorce was in the news, a source said that he would stay in Wyoming and never go back to Los Angeles again. In this song, Kanye makes it clear that he feels he should have spent more time with his wife and kids at the home he had in Los Angeles. Overall, I really like Hurricane and it's my favorite track on Donda. Watching this track evolve from Yandhi all the way to Donda was like seeing a kid growing up. At the second listening party, there were some new songs added as well. At Listening Party 2, the song Off the Grid, which featured Playboi Carti and 5E04 and got its official debut. I say that because I learned the song was going to be on Whole Lotta Red, but it ended up leaking because someone went to Kanye's apartment and recorded it outside. If you're a rap fan, don't do this. This is called trespassing and is very illegal. Anyway, prior to this track, Carti had a feature on Junya, which was played during the first listening party. Both Cardi feature tracks made it on the final album. The version of Off the Grid from the second listening party isn't bad, but it would go through some changes which would be made before the final third listening party with 2 additional Kanye verses. It was also in listening party 2 that the Donda chant was introduced. Its placement was somewhere in the middle of listening party 2, which felt really out of place. I'm glad it ended up being the opening for the album when it hit streaming. Anyway, the final track I want to talk about in depth for a bit is Jesus Lord. It's definitely the saddest in the album, as it has Kanye rap about how he wishes he could see his mom Donda again. He calls his mother the life of the party and talks about how her leaving took the life out of the party. Anyway, the Listening Party 2 version features Jay Electronica and the rap group The Lox. It's really long, but the most interesting thing about the song is that it ended with a voicemail from Larry Hoover Jr., the son of Larry Hoover Sr., who was a part of the Chicago gang called the Gangster Disciples. It turns out that when Kanye visited Trump, he was trying to get Larry Hoover Jr.'s dad freed. In the voicemail, Larry mentions that his dad did commit crimes in the past, but that he isn't the same man anymore. The voicemail is heart-wrenching as his son mentions how his children have never been able to hug their grandpa. The voicemail fits the theme of the album very well. Kanye can never see his mother again in life because she is dead, while Larry Hoover Jr. may never see his father home again because of his prison sentences. The voicemail was a very interesting inclusion. I like this addition to the song as it really surprised me. Voicemail had me feel so many emotions. While Larry Hoover committed a murder, it is interesting to hear his son's reaction to his long time imprisonment. So much has changed, he has kids of his own, and he cannot show them to his father. But yeah, Jesus Lord is a really great song. It's also very long, so I get why the verses from The Lox are on part 2 of the track. Anyway, the listening party ended with Kanye West levitating into the sky to the tune of No Child Left Behind. It was a really great way to end the listening party. Overall, I really loved Listening Party 2. The stuff that was played was fantastic. After a second listen, it was clear that Donda was going to be an album that took the concept of Jesus as King but made it better. The album was going to be a tribute to his mom and his Christian faith. I really was hoping the album would be uncut as the listening party was unedited, although that would change with the album's release. Anyway, on August 6, 2021, Donda still didn't drop.
Shade, where the fuck is Donda?
I don't know.
Shade, don't play with me. Is Kanye releasing Donda or not?
The release date for Donda kept changing on iTunes. At one point it was scheduled for August 15th, and it would have been nice having the album out on my birthday, but the date went past that. It seemed that the reason Donda wasn't dropping had to do with Drake having plans to release his album Certified Lover Boy. Kanye and Drake have beef with each other that goes way back. I'd be here all day if I explained it, so I highly recommend you check out Travelor Ross's video on the topic, even though it's a bit outdated. That'll be linked below too. Anyway, apparently Kanye had Drake in a group chat on August 21st, 2021, and he added Pusha T in it. Pusha T did a legendary diss track on Drake in 2018. Long story short, Drake does not like him. Following that, Kanye posted an image of Joaquin Phoenix Joker. He then followed that up with a rant, which makes for a great copy pasta. Later, Kanye even posted Drake's address on his Instagram, but deleted it. Then on August 25th, a Donda stem player got announced, which meant that the album would be on its way. Then on the 27th, the third and final listening party happened. For this party, Kanye rebuilt his childhood home in a stadium in Chicago. This was gearing up to be a legendary event. The songs in the second listening party were phenomenal, so I was excited to hear them again with changes, and possibly some new ones in a different setting. So, how was Listening Party 3? It certainly was very interesting. Kanye rebuilt his childhood home for the event, which took place in Soldier Field Stadium in Chicago, Illinois. It was looking to be a legendary event. It definitely was, but the event was far from perfect. For one, a ton of features were cut from the third listening party, which worried a ton of people, myself included. The third listening party began with the Donda chant. Following that up was the track Jail. I remember I was excited to hear Jay-Z's feature again until the baby walked out of Kanye's childhood home and it was revealed he was on the track instead. This really bothered me as the Jay-Z feature was really important. The feature proved the two were on good terms again, and it felt wrong for Kanye to replace his verse. DaBaby had gotten in a controversy for homophobic comments too, so that didn't help either. Next to DaBaby was Marilyn Manson, who also performed on this new version of Jail. He had some awful allegations against him, which I won't talk about here because of the nature of them. But all of those allegations were really recent, and the timing of having him there was really bad as well. While I get what Kanye was trying to do, whether that be surrounding himself with sinners he hopes he can heal, or trying to turn Marilyn Manson, an atheist, into a believer, it wasn't the smartest idea to bring them both there. But yeah, I watched that listening party, and I was bummed out about the possibility that the Jay-Z version of Jail would hit the cutting room floor. There were other disappointments, like Cudi getting cut from Remote Control in favor of a Glob Go Gub sample. Cudi was absent from Moon as well. Then there were the cut features from Jesus Lord. At the start, I was really bothered by all the omissions, and part of me was worried that this was the party that would be on the final album. However, there were some great new additions that I didn't pay close attention to. That addition being the new verses on Off the Grid. One of the most notable lyrics was one of Kanye talking about soccer being played in his backyard and saying he thinks he sees Messi. On this track, Kanye is mentioning a soccer game that he witnessed in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium while working on Donda. When I was watching Listening Party 3, I was so disappointed by the bad decisions that were made that I didn't pay attention to the good changes. But yeah, looking back now, the final Donda listening party wasn't that bad. The highlights of the event were definitely the visuals. It was nice that he created his childhood home, and I liked the addition of background dancers in Donda vests. Soldier Field was the best looking listening party out of the three. And yeah, that finale was great. Kanye set himself on fire while Come to Life played, and then what followed was him removing his mask and getting remarried to the tune of No Child Left Behind. He wore a mask for 3 listening parties in a row, so it was a surprise for him to take it off, and he seemed happy. So who is he getting married to? Kim Kardashian. I don't know if they're back together. Maybe not. I don't know, but they're clearly on good terms at least. Now I totally understand why Never Abandon Your Family did not play on this listening party. Listening party stream then ended. While I was bummed out that certain features weren't played at Soldier Field, I was still hoping they'd make the final album. And yeah, on August 29th, 2021, Donda officially released. It initially was scheduled for September 4th, but it dropped on that day instead. The album was a clean version rather than explicit, which was kind of a letdown, but it still sounded great. All the features were pretty much intact, minus Cudi on Remote Control and Pusha T on the title track. Still, there was one track that was absent from the album for a bit, that song being Jail Part 2, which DaBaby's manager refused to clear. But soon that made it onto streaming the day of release. I was excited about the album getting out, but then Kanye came out to say that it was released without his approval and that Jail Part 2 was taken off the album. Kanye must not have noticed it got added back. Still, that worried a lot of people who thought Kanye might undrop the album. However, thankfully that didn't happen. So, what are my thoughts on Donda as a whole? I'll be quick, as I'm no Anthony Fantano, but it is a really good album. It's more of a gospel album than Jesus is King, and is only something Kanye could make. The following week, on September 4th, Certified Lover Boy dropped. It was mid. It even made Drake's biggest fan fall asleep.
What top 5 you smoking on, Kendrick? Cause my top 5 is Drake.
However, later on, Drake dropped a great song, but it wasn't his own. He ended up leaking a cut Kanye song that would have been on Donda called Life of the Party that featured Andre 3000. Kanye had some lines aimed at Drake that Andre didn't like, as he wanted to collab with the rapper himself. I definitely think that the Drake diss doesn't fit Life of the Party at all, since Andre's verse is about him mourning his mom, hoping Donda will watch over her. So yeah, Life of the Party, if it is to be on an album, definitely needs to be reworked. Still, that leaked track is way better than what I've heard from Certified Lover Boy. So what's next for Kanye? In an interview he did in Germany after Donda launched, He said he still intends to make music after that album, as he believes God put him on Earth to do just that. In conclusion, Donda had one of the most interesting release rollouts I've witnessed so far. What I've learned from being a Kanye fan is that he doesn't drop an album on time, and sometimes he doesn't release a project at all. Yandhi could have been a great album, but that's never coming out, as all the songs from it have changed since then. Still, I am glad Donda actually dropped. This album was just such a personal project for Kanye that I knew it'd be released. It's an album named after his mother that is about his religious faith. Donda is something only Kanye West could make, and that's what makes it special. I've been waiting a whole year for this album to come out, and the wait was definitely worth it. And it'd be about 3 years if you count Hurricane. That song took a long time to make it to a Kanye album. Shout out to GirlyWolfPup for cameoing in the video as well. The skit featuring her is based on this tweet she pinged me with. Donda Listening Party 3 was happening. I was talking about it and she thought the album was out. She was very frustrated about it. But yeah, shout out to her for showing up in the video. This has been ShadeX, and I hope you all feel nothing but good vibes.
Well, it's an unsettled picture as we head towards the end of the week. This afternoon it'll be cold, wet and windy. We're under the influence of low pressure and this weather front pushing north.